Right, let's see. I think that's working. Hello everyone. My name is Richard Huff. I am the lead designer on Stonehearth, and my apologies for starting the stream a little late. We were actually in the process of trying to get a new unstable build out to you guys, but we ran into some last-minute issues. I was hoping we'd get it all done before we got this going, but alas, the other engineers on the team are still burning away at it. So hopefully you'll get some new stuff soon, but that is why I was late talking to you today, so my apologies. Well, along with that then, I figured that today we could go through the process of writing some design docs. Woo! That being said, we have a couple of choices of how to go about things. So there are two things that I'm really interested in writing at the moment, and they may not be the most exciting stuff, but they're stuff that we really, I think, need to do in our process of improving the underlying framework of the game as a whole. So the first thing is I want to write a design doc related to switching crafting over to an effort-based crafting system, one where objects take a certain amount of effort to finish, as opposed to right now where it's actually a discrete number of animations that it takes for them to finish. That should give us a lot more flexibility in doing some cool things that we can figure out as we write the document. The other one that I would like to probably pursue is a design document for changing how meals work inside of the game. Right now, the system's a little bit opaque and I think has a lot of complexity behind it that isn't super valuable, especially from a player experience perspective. So I wanted to take a stab at potentially writing that as well. That said, neither of those are particularly super flashy things, but those are what I was thinking of. If any of you guys in chat have a preference for one of those two, then I'd be happy to start writing that. Or if you guys have other things you'd like to talk about, general questions, that sort of thing, I can talk about that as best as I can as well. Well, so while the stream is catching up with what I just said, I probably should get some basic stuff going. Let's see. So this is Confluence. Confluence is a website that we use for tracking a whole bunch of different stuff. I use it as a place to store my final designs, or at least in-progress designs, the stuff I want to share with the team. We used to use Google Drive a lot, and Google Drive is actually great for collaborative writing, but it's really easy to get things lost in there, and the inability to cleanly hyperlink between stuff is problematic, so hence we use Confluence a bit more these days. Let's see. So, which one would be more interesting to you guys? There's probably a little bit more meat on the effort crafting question. So maybe we'll start there. Let's see. So, I apologize. You guys probably hear me typing. I tend to smack my keyboard a lot. So, but we did switch to a non-mechanical keyboard because I found out how much noise I was making last time. So hopefully this will be a little bit better. All right, well, let's see. So basic stuff that I like to do. Let's do some basic outlining. I haven't thought about this much at all, to be honest, so I will be flying by the seat of my pants. Let's see. It's always a little intimidating to write things when you know a bunch of people are reading exactly what it is that you're writing. And also, starting a document is always the toughest part of any process. So let's see. Let's actually do this. New effort-based crafting system. This approach replaces the current crafting economy, which relies on a discrete number of animations from any item to complete. By switching to an effort-based system, we will have more flexibility in creating means for players to affect the system as a whole. Yes, I look at my keyboard as I type. And it will also create a new vector for us to add gameplay hooks to the... Sure, turn in the music down. I can do that, if I can find the button. Music down. Excellent. Where are the gameplay hooks? To the crafting experience. Okay, so what do I mean by effort-based crafting? Well, right now, whenever you craft something, the amount of time it takes for an individual item to get crafted is dependent on how a definition that says how many times we should play the crafting animation. So we basically say, oh, this chair, play the animation of smacking the workbench 4 times when you build a chair. That has a lot of problems because, one, that approach is tied to the animation itself. So if Mally wanted to ever create variations of the animation, imagine you've got a character who's like super happy, and so as they're crafting, they throw their hammer up in the air and catch it and like do a little spin. Or maybe someone's really like flustered and they hit their thumb and they wince and like, you know, hold it up and suck on it before they go back to crafting. Those variant animations with their different links will actually then change the amount of time it takes to craft a particular item. So by doing a purely aesthetic thing, we're actually changing the gameplay of a game. And that is something that you pretty much always want to avoid from a game design perspective. Aesthetics shouldn't drive mechanics. Instead, the aesthetics should be a reflection of what's going on underneath, inside the mechanics of the system as a whole. So the idea behind effort-based crafting is that instead of relying on explicit animations, we'll instead attach an amount of effort associated with any particular item. And maybe there's a better word than effort, but let's use that for the moment, unless chat comes up with something better. The idea then is that item, like a chair, takes 100 effort points. When a character goes up and interacts with a workbench, they start generating effort points at a rate of, I don't know, 15 per hour. And so then they're playing whatever animations they want to while they're interacting with the workbench, generating 15 points per hour. Once, in this case, quick math, like 6.5 hours have passed. They've generated around 100 effort points, so the item that they were building is complete and moves off and they could do other things. They can play any animations they want to during that time. They could leave the crafting in progress and come back to it later. And more importantly, it creates a means for us to interact with how long it takes to craft something. So we could start changing the amount of time it takes to craft an item based on the level of the crafter. So maybe higher level crafters create effort points faster. The quality of the workbench. Maybe if we want to extend it later so that you've got your like really crummy basic workbenches and your super awesome steampunk mechanical workbench later, like maybe using better workbenches allows you to complete things faster. Maybe the quality of the working space influences your work speed. So if your blacksmith is surrounded by places to hang weapons and a stockpile of decorative ore and like a picture of his family, or I don't know, other stuff like that, then maybe he also works faster. He or she also works faster in that particular case. So all that stuff that we don't have the capability to do right now because we're limited to purely animation basis. So a lot of what comes next is actually just kind of writing down what I said. We want to create a new means for controlling the rate of construction for items in the game. Joe Maxrow, I would think that my hope is that we could create a default value for all items in the game. So if you don't have a field in them associated with the effort amount, then you could just default to a value that makes sense and lines up with what the gameplay is currently. So I'm actually, what is your concern about mods that this would break? Obviously, if I change the amount of time it takes something to craft now than it did previously, that will change the field stuff. Is there something I'm missing underneath the hood? And Joe Maxrow, it's also not that different than changing the work units from the animation. It's just also creating a design around which we could potentially influence the rate that we generate the work units as well. Want to create a means for controlling the rate of... Oh, excuse me. Nope, we gotta mute as I sneeze. Okay. Want to create a new means for controlling the rate of construction of items in the game. So that we have this system should not meet the following goals. So teams generally requested when I do designs that we specifically call out the things that the goals are. The animation playback takes to make an item, create more variability in the amount of time it takes to craft items, expose a new vector along which we can make certain crafters and environments better for crafting things than others. And I misspelled separate because I always misspelled separate. All recipe JSON files have work units, key value pair. Work units is renamed to effort. Yep. My guess, Joe Maxrow, is that underneath the hood, these actually might be referred to. We probably just might keep that key. If there's a key that works like that, it's always nice to keep that the same. I wouldn't go about intentionally breaking that type of keying if we could. Okay. You know what? I'll even put a note in. Mods and transferring to the effort-based system. Okay. All items in Stonehearth that can be crafted have a certain amount, a certain level of that is required to create the item. This value is defined in the associated items recipe for said the item recipe. And, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, catching up the chat. Cool. And size defined in worship recipe. And the amount represents amount should correlate to the difficulty of making the item. I didn't capitalize Stonehearth. Someone will yell at me at some point. When a crafter begins making an item, the item in progress item begins accruing effort points as long as let me try this a different way. Complete the construction of the item. The crafter must generate an associated amount of effort points while working on the item. So anything that's missing from that? A certain level of effort that is very craft the item, that is defined and associated and amount correlated with the item. Okay. Sure. This isn't that complex a concept, so let's just go into heavier details. Effort generation. Crafter begins working on a recipe on the in progress version of the item. Let's. So what I just stopped on is we don't really have a strong concept right now of in-progress items in the game, at least to my understanding. This system may actually warrant a couple of considerations, like can a crafter stop midway crafting through an item? If they do that, what happens to the item? What happens to the crafting table? So does a crafting item reserve the table and it can't do anything else until it's completed? Do we need a way to see on a table? Yeah. Okay. What's a good way to describe that problem? Yeah, okay. Let's go back to what I was doing. And I'll worry about the reserving as the next step along this problem. And progress of the item is created with a current level of 0. Yeah, I think they sit on the table until they're completed, but it's pretty transit. I don't know the full specifics. Let's see. Do I have? Let's see. What's going on? If all else fails, run the game. Boo. Let's see. Cool. So somebody was doing something here. Great. I don't think I care about that. I do care about that. Oh, it's a mix-in, that's why. Am I not looking for the right thing? Oh, I was not. Okay, cool. It's going because I don't have the wood. That's why. No, this will actually be easier for me. If I just quickly do it again. Hi, Michael. Silver for facts. Brad might actually be the best person to send it to, though Stephanie will be back on Monday. Okay, so let's quickly harvest some stuff. Yep, go get that. Let's quickly. Oh, he stole the thing before she changed over. There we go. Okay. Cool. Crafting table, yes. Build one. Go on. Create. Do that. Create. Make a window frame. Do it. Okay. So there may be a concept of in progress in the underlying system implementation, but it is not represented anywhere right now. That's why I want to confirm. It didn't show up related to the bench. It didn't show up on the thing on it. It didn't show up in the UI. So yeah. So if there is a system, it's an intermediary that owns it internally. Yes, Real Omegessa, I think that's going to lead towards creating a assignment of a particular stockpile. As far as PAX East is Friday of next week. Most of the team is leaving Thursday. Okay. As the crafter interacts with the workbench, two things happen. The crafter finds animations from a set of crafting animations. These animations can be of varying length, style, which likely reflect some current halfling, such as their current mood. Let's see. The in progress item begins to gain effort points, and this rate of gain comes from 3 different things. So 3 things it should probably come from is the level of the crafter interacting with the bench, the quality of the bench, the quality modifier of the bench. This is a concept we don't really have yet, so I'll need to describe it. And let's also say what there should be a stat. There probably should be. Let's see. The trait buff modifiers. Base contribution amounts. Trait buff modifiers. Okay. Add a basic amount. Influence it based on the level of crafter. Influence it based on the modifier of the bench. Influence it based on anything that's currently affecting the crafter. That sounds complete. We need to describe a bit of what these are. Yeah, in the original design, Real Bagessa, we had mood affecting a crafting. We couldn't put it in because we didn't have the system, but I actually definitely want to do it. So you know what? I'll even though it's implied, I will be explicit. Mood and buff modifiers. There we go. So let's talk about each of these in turn. Confluence. I wish you would do that sometimes. All right. So let's see. All crafting activities by default contribute. So we want a really clean way to determine the amount of time it will take to make something. So I would probably start So when you're doing this style of thing, particularly if we ever want to reflect this numerically back to the player, we probably want to avoid anything that is I would refer to as sci-fi numbers. So we want to be careful about creating a scale that in of itself creates really big numbers that the player will have to consume. Conversely, we also want to make sure that we have a scale that is easily readable and parsable by us in the future. So why am I saying those two statements? Because right now I'm trying to think through what scale we should be using. So if a Hearthlings interact with a crafting table, we want some sort of scale that, absent any other modifiers, so like it's a normal Hearthling, nothing crazy going on, nothing special about the table, nothing special about the room, he's just super pleasant, that we can very quickly understand when we put things into the JSON file how much time it will take to make something. So my default inclination is to say that you generate 1 unit of effort per minute. So that way, if we see something like this particular crafting thing takes 120 effort points, then in the naive implementation, we can very quickly understand that that takes 2 hours inside of the game. That probably is better than some of the alternatives, because if we did 1 point per hour, that means any sub-segmenting of the hour will get confusing. Like, you'll have to start creating things like, modders will have to say something like 1.56 effort points. Could do, but I mean, do people really care about that? What's going to be cleaner for us in the end? We could also do... We don't simply want to make a time and say that this thing takes 2 hours and 23 minutes, because I think that gives the wrong impression for us as designers and modders when all these other modifiers start coming in. Is 1 per minute the right thing? Or is 1 per in-game hour? I doubt it's something like 1 per every 10 minutes or something, because then you start to get weird things like 6 means an hour. If we weren't dealing with crazy clock time, this would be easy because we just use decimal point values, but an hour has 16 minutes inside of it, so like it's not as clean there. Let's try 1. And let's just see how that feels going forward. Point of effort per minute. Construction of a real. Say a person produces 1 useful unit of work per hour at their default state. The object, mood, and other modifiers just changed the default value. That's what I'm currently thinking. We could do changes that are additive or multiplicative, right? So you could do a bunch of different stuff. But yeah, that's my theory. Create a base rate and then modify from it is usually a pretty good pattern to work from. Permit to the construction of yeah, I'd probably change the I probably would change the contribution rate as opposed to the amount of time something takes. You could do the latter, but doing both at the same time is a bit ugly. Also, the latter of changing the amount has some weird edge cases. Like, imagine you got 1 crafter, he's super experienced and starts crafting something. And so he starts crafting it. As a result, the crafting cost decreases by 50%. He starts it and then is immediately killed. He didn't contribute any effort to it whatsoever. Now you've got this incomplete item that has 50% of the total crafting points it would have taken previously. If we ever, let's say in the straw man argument, you could then have another crafter come by and pick up that incomplete recipe to start finishing it. And that dude that comes by is a super junior apprentice, like the worst crafter ever. Well, he still is working on an item that has like 50% reduced, unless you then like readjust the cost, which is a little like non-intuitive. So I think generating the rate makes a little more sense, I think. That's what I would think, Joe. I think everything should increase the rate of generation, not necessarily lower the cost, the effort cost in this concept. Though those are interchangeable things, you just don't want to do both at the same time. Okay. All right. So level experience of a crafter as a discrete effect on the rate of that. Let's say direct effect on the rate of effort that the object takes to be constructed. Here's where stuff starts to become interesting, especially as you start dealing with modifiers. You have to begin thinking about what ones should be affect base rates, what ones should be additive, and what ones should be multiplicative. So for example, if I were to say something like the rate of generation is like the number of effort points you generate per minute is equal to your crafting level, then if we did a buff that says like 50% increased crafting rate, then that's going to be much, much better in a very large way for like your level 6 crafter versus your level 1 crafter. Though if it's multiplicative, stuff starts to, or sorry, I'm losing myself a little bit in my example. If the crafting rate is something like, a level 6 crafter is 50% faster than a level 1 crafter, then the change doesn't do quite as much. Yeah, I think, Joe, I think in general, like absent of what I'm about to write from a numerical standpoint, a level 6 crafter should craft a fence faster than a level 6 crafter should craft it faster than a level 0 crafter. That would seem to make sense. I think there also should probably be a chance of a higher quality as well. That's where things start to come. That's a little thread that I'll need to pull on in just a moment and see what comes from that. Has a direct effect on the rate of effort that it takes to be constructed. So there'll probably be a really clean formula for this, but I'll need to... 0 doesn't make any sense. You can't craft anything if you're level 0. And of course that didn't work. Crafting here noticed. Okay, queue items and blueprints. They want to build the pre-builds with it. By stock, they still queue it. Signs got queued, but not done. Do they need the blank side from the carpenter? Yes, I agree, Handy. There are problems right now associated with the dependency web of items. The UX there needs an update for sure. I thought that... Am I just mistaken? I thought that as soon as you became a crafter, you were level 1. But that's fine. We can add it. Okay. So, what formula do we want to pursue here? How much better should a level 6 crafter be? How much better should a level 6 crafter be? Three times? If I did something... So let's try some alternatives. No, we're not. I just haven't quite gotten to it yet. I'll put it up here. Exponential seems pretty extreme. Because I don't have a good argument, aside from a gut feeling. One thing we could do is we could do... Yeah. Nonlinear probably is directionally right. We're just going to throw some numbers down and see where they end up. Yeah, this is one of those things that there's no, like, right or wrong answer to. And that's kind of one of the weird things about design, right? You just kind of go with what feels like it will work. But, Joe, I think you're right. I think a nonlinear increase is the right direction. I don't like the scale. But I think... What should I change about this? So I like the idea that level 6 is a whole number and level 0 and 1 are the same. I wonder... I was about to say Fibonacci. This is wrong. This is not good. This is a bad scale. I'm getting caught up on this, and this isn't that entertaining to see me just look at like different types of numbers. So I'll just put a little note for me later. Should null 5 and 6 have the same amount? Definitely is the same. Non-linear formula. Okay. Bench modifiers, that's more interesting. Let's move on to that. Let's actually call this craft station. Craft stations can contribute a multiplicative modifier to the rate at which things are constructed. This modifier is derived from the following base contribution. Let's call it a. We could probably do something. Well, do I want to open the door to the idea of no parent contribution of the table, and let's say quality of the surrounding environment. So I'll need to define that a bit. First point, it is possible for different crafting tables to contribute principal, bigger and shinier and more expensive crafting devices should be better to craft on. However, 7 points. We want to create a concept of the crafting being influenced by the local environment. Let's see. So this, am I going to open up a can of worms by starting to write this? Potentially. But let's see how it goes. Crafting can be influenced by two things. Well, how do I want to say this? This modifier is affected by two classes of things. Inside supporting items are when a crafting station is outside, there is a negative penalty. There's a small negative penalty to the efficiency of the crafting table. So that makes sense because we want to encourage players to build their crafting tables. Think, is this universally true? So I write this as I start thinking through, if I implement this, then things like forges, we would be telling players to put those inside. Which might be too aesthetically limiting. I think Joe, I will use that for now. I think I really need to like think through a bit what the things look like, but that is more representative than leaving things where they currently are. So we'll use that. So going back to what I was saying, thanks for that scale, Joe. Going back to what I was saying. Yeah, I think that might be the right solution. That only certain crafting tables benefit from outside, being inside and outside. Crafting station can be defined as preferring to be inside or outside. If the station is placed in a style of environment it does not prefer, and there is a small negative penalty to its efficiency. That probably is better. At the minimum, I would think the blacksmith makes sense to be outside. I'll think through that a little bit more, but that feels directionally good. Okay. I need to find supporting items. Actually, an item, a placeable item. Placeable is not a word. Let's go with that. Yeah. Optionally, placeable item can be defined to be a supporting item of a particular placeable item of this item. All right, so here is a thing to think about. So I like the idea of certain items being making crafting better if they're near the table. This is to try and push towards an idea that like baker shops that look like baker shops are better to have. Weaponsmiths that look like weaponsmiths should be like better to have, and all that type of stuff. So if we create a mechanical incentive to line up decorations with what is going on the table, then let me get lighting real fast. Then that is better. The trick is to figure out the right way to motivate that. So, the base things I need to think through are, one, do we want to have items that have different impacts on the rate of crafting? So, can you have really expensive items that improve the crafting a lot, and then really cheap items that improve the crafting only a little? Two, how do we want to handle duplicates of the same item? And three, should there be a max? So all of those questions become really interesting. I have played games that very discreetly define the things that can provide benefits. So you need, for this forge to work better, it works best when you have like 1 of 1 chairs in the room and 3 of 3 benches and 2 of 2 like cloth hangings and that sort of stuff. So like building more cloth hangings past the 2 doesn't help you. That's okay. It at least gets me to the point of having a clear checklist of what to include in the room, but feels stifling in terms of decoration. Like all my rooms start to feel the same because I'm just benefiting from that being there. So I don't think I like that. I think that there should, however, probably be a maximum contribution that you can get from certain types of items. So let's, as an example, say that for some reason masons benefited from bird baths being around them. We wouldn't want to create a place where the player is incentivized to just surround the mason table by 50 bird baths. It's weird, it doesn't make sense, and it's also ugly. So creating some system for maximum contributions, I think, makes sense. One thing we could probably do is organize things by classification. So what does that mean if we do that? So what I'm saying is, instead of saying like this benefits from like 2 urns and 2 cloth thingies and a chair very explicitly, instead we say that like this crafting table can benefit from like 1 large decoration and 3 medium decorations and 5 small decorations. So we, instead of classifying items, so then when you're creating your supporting items, you say if it's a big, small, or medium, and then it's up to the player to mix and match them as they want to. That could work. Diminishing returns is a thing that we could do. Diminishing returns is where I went to first, mentally myself as well. I think it's a good instinct. But I worry a little bit that it's a bit stifling, in that I know some players really like their environments to look a very specific way, and they get it to look that very specific way by loading down on certain decoration choices. I don't know if I want to, like, as much as I don't want to force people, it's the other side of the coin. I don't want to encourage people to say the best thing that you can do is overload on decorations. But on the flip side, I don't necessarily, if someone really wants their room to look a certain way, I don't know if I want to make them, like, to punish them for using a lot of duplicates. In terms of how we would indicate things, we might do, that would be tagged in the item itself. So it's tagged as like a big support item, a medium support item, or a small support item. Something still feels wrong though. Let me catch up with chat for a moment. Yeah. The explicit stuff is kind of nice in some ways because it very much Yeah, Michael, that's one thing we could do, but I want to try and make sure the system's intuitive. So having variable behavior between stuff is something I'd like to avoid if we can, unless we're really explicit about what's going on. And this is such a more like nuanced style of system that I don't know if that type of separation is something that we should do. Like I want you just to be kind of generally like rewarded for decorating your room without trying to think too hard about it. As soon as we start getting to the point where players are doing math, I think we might have like gone too far on the optimization route. Joe, yes, I think we need exposure at some level. What about 2+ required reward? I'm not sure I follow that, Miss Mecca. What are you suggesting there? Okay, what are some of the ideas? Maybe I'll just do some like brainstorming stuff. Group supporting items by classification. So large, medium, small, tables, crafting stations, support exporting items. Each category. Crafting stations require explicit items, so like 0, 1, 0, 1 chair, 0 of 3 shelves, 0 of 2 candelabras, I don't know, stuff like that. Is there any other system that makes sense? I mean, diminished returns, like reward, unique supporting items, diminishing returns for secondary, for duplicates. Alternatively, you could just reward unique supporting items. Don't reward duplicates. Actually, that may not be bad. That may not be bad. Well, supporting items will have different costs, so you always end up in a place where certain items are the most efficient. Rio, how big of a space around a crafting table would benefit it? That's a good question. I wouldn't want to make it too big of a test. It might be a test on the room as a whole, or it might just be a test on like eight, like a 8 voxel radius test or something else. I would need to think through the actual way. Reading chat. Okay. 0.43 scale. I'll keep that in mind. That could work. Yeah, it could work. Sorry, you lost digital saber. And what? Are there any other choices here? So what is the benefit to each of these? So if we do the classifications and supporting items, it allows mixing and matching of the stuff, and also probably allows what I want, which is to create, is to encourage some amount of variety while not being super like taxing on the player. So they could have whatever mixture of large or medium or small items that they wanted, as long as they had a sufficient number of those. There will probably be an optimization around like the set of large, the set of medium, and the set of small is the cheapest and or produces the most net value, but that's not too bad. Explicit items works. It's not as flexible, but it does work. Unique supporting items and with diminishing returns, I think works. Yeah, all of these work. I don't know which one I want to do. I really don't know. Yeah, real. I think that's probably what we might end up doing, but the question still remains is that underneath the hood, we need to find how that bar would fill up. And yeah, Miss Becca points out an additional part of it. Like right now, I'm still thinking through the supporting items just being discrete supporting items in of themselves. So everyone being present helps, but they don't help fundamentally differently from each other. We could go a route where different supporting items do have different effects, but I think that starts to get overloaded pretty quickly. Like you get to start to get really complex calculations around the trade-offs of having like one thing versus another. I think theming and stuff should probably feed into a different system. So as an example, and maybe when we get to the point of calculating the net worth or the net like beauty of a room, there's a concept of a room that is themed more together around a particular aesthetic choice. Is more beautiful, and that's an ancillary system on top of this that's not affecting how fast you're crafting things, but it's affecting how beautiful your Hearthling thinks the room is. I probably wouldn't entangle these. I would separate them out like that. I kind of like the classification one, the one that's at the top, the most. I'll need to stew on it, but I think I like that one as the direction to go. Okay, it is 7:20. I wasn't quite paying attention to the time. This is about how my design docs normally tend to go. A lot of me arguing with myself, and then getting opinions from dudes like you to feed things together. So I appreciate you guys helping out with this. I hope that it's been informative, or at least clarifying on how I tend to think about problems like this. Let me catch up with chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. How many hearts you have in town? Mission would drop off where I pick this up. Yeah. That is the advantage of diminishing return stuff for sure. Okay. Well, next time I will hopefully have a more exciting design to work with you guys, but I thought this was potentially interesting. And as always, thank you once again. We will hopefully have a new build to Unstable for you guys very soon with a bunch of cool new features in it. Maybe if we're even lucky, the bug will be squashed by the time I get back to my desk, but I doubt it, so don't hold me to that. Otherwise, for those of you that are going to PAX East, we will see you there. We will probably not be streaming on Thursday of next week because most of us will be traveling during that day. I'll talk to Stephanie and see if she wants to do a makeup stream at some point during the week next week at a different time. With that, though, you guys have a good night or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. And this is Richard Huff signing off. Take care, everyone.